everyone, good morning. This is Jenny, owner and founder of Sipping Streams Tea Company, and I wanted to share a little bit about tea with you. So my experience with tea is that I actually was a coffee drinker since I was 4 years old, just drinking straight black coffee since I was a kid. But my grandfather always had tea. Every morning he would do his Tai Chi, he would have his Chinese tea ceremony. So today I brought some of my Yixing set with me, and he would go for a walk every day. And I just remembered him leaving his tea out on the table, and I would go, oh man, what's Grandpa drinking? You know, it must be really good because he drinks it every day. So I tried some of it, and it's actually one of my favorite teas. When I was a kid, I didn't know what it was. I just knew it was tea. But now, my palate has developed and my tea experience has developed, I found out that the tea that he made every day for himself in his Kung Fu Cha set, which is like a Yixing set, a clay pot with little tiny cups, he was the Tea Kuan Yin Oolong. And what's special about the Yixing clay pots is that they're porous, and so they actually absorb the flavor of the tea over time and in there. So you're almost like seasoning your teapot, and it's pretty cool because over time you're going to have this really mature tea flavor in your teapot. So you definitely want to have one specific tea that you have in your pot that you make all the time. In my Yixing pots, I like to use pu'erh tea in it. And some people don't realize what pu'erh tea is. They think it's a name of a tea. Yes and no, it's a name of a tea, but it's actually a whole huge category of teas. So when I went to Yunnan, I got to go to the International Pu'erh Festival, and pu'erh is this huge industry in Yunnan because pu'erh is actually a type of tea that was invented out of that province of China. It's a very special tea. It's aged like wine, and that tea actually gets better with age. There's a time that it actually will peak and taste the best, and after that, it's just okay. But there's actually microbes in it, like little probiotics in it. So how they make the tea is, nowadays they're made in factories, but originally it was tea leaves that were dried and put on horseback. There's this famous road, this famous trail called the Tea Horse Road in China, and it would take them months to go up this steep and dangerous trail to bring tribute to the emperor. And so that tea along the way was packed on horseback, and so it would sometimes get kind of a little wet. It might get dried, absorbs campfire smoke, and it was just this native tea that the indigenous people of Yunnan made, and they would take it to their emperor as tribute. So what would happen was the tea would totally transform its flavor by the time that it got to the emperor. And it was just okay for most emperors, but one year a different emperor was in power, and they thought that tea was absolutely amazing. Smooth, musty, woodsy, earthy, slightly sweet, and he dedicated that tea as the best tea under heaven. And today, a lot of people in the United States drink this tea for its health benefits. But the Chinese have been consuming this tea for thousands of years as a tea that's aided with digestion, with helping with decreasing cholesterol, and with helping the circulatory system. So this tea you might have seen before, but never knew what it really was. You just thought it was decorative tea. And I'm going to show you what it looks like. Some people have seen them in bricks. Some people have seen them in cakes. So I have one from Sichuanbana. And it's a compressed tea. And this is actually, the round shape is how they traditionally had it packed on horseback. So this was in stacks on both sides of the horses. And when they compressed the tea into cakes, by the time that it got to the emperor, it was the best way to pack it. So the tea leaves weren't completely disintegrated and crushed. So they would actually dry the tea leaves compressed together, because it was the best way for them to carry the tea and withstand the long, strenuous journey to make tribute. So if you know, or if you've seen regular loose leaf teas, they are kind of, let's see if I can put this in something. They're really fluffy. So you'll have fluffy teas, and these tea leaves are going to be absolutely crushed by the time they're in sacks. So you don't really want to bring sacks of loose leaf tea to your emperor, because by the time he gets this tea, this amazing tea has turned into this terribly low-grade quality tea. It's not that people crush tea on purpose to make it. It's that the crushed tea ends up being really small particles and is like the leftover tea. So that's why the quality of the grade of tea, when people are saying, oh, I'm buying such a low grade of tea, do they crush the tea leaves? Oh, heck no. People want good quality tea. What they're doing is selling you the leftovers, the stuff on the very bottom of the barrel. So that's why knowing about the different grades of tea is really important. But anyways, back to pu'erh tea. So pu'erh tea is this very famous tea that became famous. And the indigenous people of Yunnan spoke, and they still speak, many different dialects, many different native dialects. And with their dialects, they called this tea so many different names. And so as the popularity of pu'erh grew, people started to ask, well, what should we call it? Is this the same thing that I'm getting that somebody else is selling? Because one person says, I want to buy this kind of tea. Another person says, I want to buy this kind of tea. But they all look the same. Is this the same thing? And so, yes, one of the emperors decided, because pu'erh is actually the name of a town, name of a village, where a lot of people from the outskirts of that rural area of Yunnan would come and bring their teas for trade. So thanks, Crystal, for joining me today. And anyone, if you have any questions at all, write them down below so I can answer them. But did you know that all tea, the Camellia sinensis plant, the tea leaf plant, is all the same plant? So when you've got white tea, green tea, oolong tea, black tea, and pu'erh, those are all the exact same plant that is turned into different teas through its oxidation process. And pu'erh is a special type of tea that actually gets almost composted, so it's a little fermented and aged. It's because traditionally what happened was when they took the tea on horseback, they would, be wrapped in these papers, kind of porous, and then it would sometimes rain or sometimes be misty and humid, and then they'd dry out their goods near the campfire, and then they'd continue on with their journey. And so the tea never got completely dry, but by the time they took it to the emperor, you bet you it was dry. It better be dry, otherwise you're going to have moldy tea leaves. And so when they went back to Yunnan, and the emperor had created this tea to be this amazing, best thing under heaven beverage, they had to mimic the travels of that. Because if people were coming to them to buy this amazing tea, this aged tea that was aged during the journey to go to China, to the emperor, then when people were coming to them, they were no longer taking this long, strenuous journey to the emperor. They had to mimic the same type of flavors that were created when they went on this amazing journey on the Tea Horse Road. So I wanted to show you that pu'erh isn't just in cakes nowadays, or bricks, but that you can also get it loose leaf too. So I'm going to make some in my yixing pot. It's got the phoenix and the dragon, and that symbolizes balance in relationships. So I'm going to put some pu'erh in here. And I'm making this more of the gongfu style tea, so I'm not going to steep my tea for that long. And the interesting thing about pu'erh is that it's a tea that needs to be rinsed out. So you do a first steeping of pu'erh tea, a very quick rinse to remove kind of all of, you know, if you're traveling on horseback, in a porous type of package of your tea, you would want to dump out and rinse out your tea that might be dusty or dirty before you made more tea. And the reason why I'm putting this in a pitcher is because I want to get all my tea leaves to fully open, so like my tea isn't strong on the bottom and light on the top. And I put more tea leaves in a smaller vessel so that I can change and modify the way that I prepare the tea, so it's still perfect by having adjusting the time on it. So if I put more tea leaves in a smaller vessel, I will want to steep my tea at a much lower time, so I still have a perfect cup of tea. Yep, and my clay pitcher is empty. I'm only having tea for myself, even though I have 2 cups here today. I really like using the yixing clay just because it's so beautiful. It usually all has a story behind it. It's a very rare thing to find nowadays that is authentically yixing clay because of the river that they take the clay out of. It's actually illegal nowadays to harvest that clay from that specific river because it's been over harvested. So, you know, the shore is kind of like corroded away, so you're not supposed to take clay from that very special river anymore. I do have some antique yixing clay sets that my relatives have sent me because they don't drink so much tea anymore, and they know that I love tea. I own a tea company, so they always send me their old antique tea sets because they want me to enjoy it. They think that I'll enjoy it a lot more than they do, so yeah. So when you drink tea properly, you want to slurp it. And when you slurp your tea, you are actually spraying the tea all over your palate so you get an even flavor of your tea. I'm going to do a second steeping of this because every steeping totally transforms and changes the flavor of the tea. Make sure I pour out all the tea. So the time of the infusion changes the extraction rate. So the tea leaves open up more, and then there's a different balance. It's not that it becomes weaker, it actually gets better the second or third time. So these are one of my favorite categories of teas, oolongs and pu'erhs. Oolongs are the largest category of teas because there's actually 5 subcategories in it. And pu'erhs are this very unique, very raw and historical tea that has an amazing journey story with it. There are two types of pu'erhs out there. There's the raw kind or the ripe kind. This is the raw kind, and I will go more in depth in that in the Essence of Tea if you pledge on our Kickstarter. But the raw kind is the one that goes through more of a natural aging process where it takes a lot longer than the ripe kind. And the reason why people change the word raw and ripe, or cooked or uncooked, or green or red, it has to do with a translational issue with Chinese into English. And in the Chinese tea ceremony, there's a lot of water used, a lot of flow, a lot of movement, and so it's totally fine to actually have specific tea ceremony trays that catch all the movement of the water. So since this is a raw pu'erh, it will actually have more of a green flavor in it. Even though it's kind of past a black tea, but pu'erhs can be as light as a white tea or as dark as a black tea, and that will all depend on the process. So I guess the two favorite categories of tea, my two favorite categories of tea are pretty complex ones, and maybe that's why I like them, is because I love to continuously learn about tea, and I hope that you do too. Oh, this one is way better than the first steeping. It's still light, mildly sweet, with this nice undertone of earthy woodsiness that, like, on the bottom of my palate just comes out when I breathe it. So yeah, I hope you get to join me. Please pledge if you haven't gotten a chance on our Kickstarter, and please help us with our Sipping Streams Universi-Tea project, because we would love to share with you more about our passion with tea. And thank you so much for joining me today.